Dalgona coffee, the all-famous and viral beverage that everyone had been making during the circuit breaker and lockdown period. Why is it so nice, and how does it have such a nice, wholesome, thick, and luxurious mouthfeel with just three ingredients: sugar, water, and coffee? Well, today we'll be looking at this question and try to look at it in a different perspective, the size perspective. Welcome to the food channel on the topic of Dalgona coffee. Today, we will demystify the all-popular Dalgona coffee. So what actually is Dalgona coffee and how it came about? Let's start with a little history. So from my research, it was found that Dalgona coffee wasn't something that is very new to the world. It is in fact a sweet treat that has been in South Korea for quite a long time, as a sweet treat or a street snack before it was famous worldwide. So what exactly is Dalgona coffee? Well, Dalgona coffee, as mentioned, is a sweet treat. And to be more exact, it is actually a foam, a coffee foam, but it's not the normal foam that we know of, which are usually more light and airy. But it is rather a more dense and luxurious foam that provides a good mouth coating along with a strong burst of coffee flavor all at once. It can also sit on top of a milk or any other liquid for a long time before it disappears. And personally, I feel that it can last longer than a latte milk foam. Wonder why? Well, before we move into this topic, let me first explain what foam is. So, a foam is actually a mass of bubbles formed on or in a liquid, typically by agitation, and it consists of two phases, the liquid phase as well as the bubble phase, also known as the air phase. Now that we know what foam is, let's talk about why Dalgona coffee is so stable as a foam. So, in size, the stability of foam depends on two things: the thickness of the liquid layer and the size and consistency of the bubble. Speaking about the thickness of the liquid, it is known that a much thicker liquid phase would ensure a much stable foam due to the slower movement of liquid away from the bubble in the foam, and this process is known scientifically as drainage. Creating a thicker liquid phase is where the sugar in Dalgona coffee comes into place. You see, sugar on its own is able to make water become much thicker and slower moving. Think of it as a comparison between how much thicker and slower moving sugar syrup is as compared to water. In addition, the small amount of water required ensures the overall thick liquid is produced. Thus, with sugar and small amount of water, it helps make a very thick liquid phase and thus contributes to the stability of the foam we are all curious about. Let's not forget about the second factor, which is the size and consistency of the bubble. In theory, it is ideal to have a small and consistent bubble to ensure a stable foam, since it helps slow down the foam from disappearing. As we all know, bigger bubbles have a higher tendency to burst as compared to smaller bubbles. Also, having smaller bubbles means it takes longer time for it to form bigger bubbles, thus delaying the process of bubble bursting. Lastly, these small and consistent bubbles also reduce the likelihood of swap ripening, which in layman terms means it helps reduce the chance of bigger bubbles from consuming the smaller bubbles in the foam. Small and consistent bubbles in the foam is very much the case for Dalgona coffee, due to the continuous long whipping needed for almost all Dalgona coffee recipes, either by hand or by machine at high speed. Thus, as you can see, sugar and small amount of water help make the foam stable by creating a thick liquid phase, and the long and tedious whipping helps make small and consistent bubbles that contributes to the stability of this beverage. Now, as for the denseness of the Dalgona coffee, I personally believe that it could be due to some of the fat content that's in the coffee, as well as the small amount of water used, which actually makes the overall content pretty thick and provide a dense and delicious mouthfeel of Dalgona coffee. Well, I hope that this podcast helps to demystify some of the questions behind Dalgona coffee and also put some size perspective into our popular beverage around the world. Thank you.